The Nexus floated in the darkness of space like a giant crystal mountain. Its towers reached up into the void between stars, and its lights pulsed with power that could tear holes between different worlds. For 10,000 years it had been the most important place in the galaxy. Every ship that wanted to travel between dimensions had to come here first. Admiral Kethver stood on the command deck of his flagship and looked at the massive station with pride. His people, the Zephyrians, had built this place with their allies long ago. The Corothian Collective and the Vex Syndicate had helped them create the greatest wonder in known space. Together they controlled every pathway that led from one dimension to another. No species had ever dared to challenge their authority here. The Nexus was protected by quantum barriers that could destroy entire fleets in seconds. Sentient machines that had never lost a battle guarded every entrance. The station was powered by exotic matter that only the three ruling species knew how to use. Any ship that approached without permission would be turned into space dust before it could send a distress signal. The Great Council chamber sat in the center of the station like a beating heart. Representatives from hundreds of worlds had gathered there today for something very special. They were going to sign the Eternal Dominion Pact. This agreement would make sure the three ruling species kept control of the Nexus for another 1,000 years. Every species that wanted to travel between dimensions would have to pay their tolls and follow their rules. Kethver walked through the corridors of his ship toward the shuttle bay. His 4 eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he thought about the ceremony ahead. The pact would cement their power forever. No upstart species would ever be able to challenge the natural order of things. The three great powers had earned their position through strength and wisdom. They deserved to rule the interdimensional highways. Far away from the Nexus, hidden in an asteroid field, floated a much smaller ship. The human vessel Horizon drifted silently between the rocky debris with all its systems running on minimum power. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair and watched the ceremony through his long-range scanners. The alien ships around the Nexus looked like tiny insects next to the massive station. Morrison was a tall man with gray hair and weathered hands. He had spent most of his life exploring the unknown regions of space. His crew trusted him completely. Because he had never led them into danger he could not get them out of. Today he was doing something that might change the course of galactic history forever. Dr. Lisa Hayes stood next to the captain's chair, studying her instrument readings. She was the expedition's chief scientist and the smartest person Morrison had ever met. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her blue eyes were focused on the energy signatures coming from the Nexus. She had been studying alien technology for 20 years, and she understood things about the station that its builders had forgotten. Commander Nick Carter paced back and forth behind them like a caged tiger. He was their military liaison, and he did not like hiding in asteroid fields while aliens made plans for the galaxy. His dark skin was scarred from old battles, and his brown eyes burned with the desire for action. He wanted to take the fight directly to the enemy, but he knew the captain was right to wait and watch. The three humans had been observing the Galactic Council for months. They had learned about the Nexus and how it controlled all travel between dimensions. They had studied the quantum barriers and the sentient defense systems. Most importantly, they had discovered something the aliens did not know about their own technology. Morrison adjusted his scanner controls and zoomed in on the signing ceremony. Hundreds of alien species were represented in that great chamber. Some looked like giant insects, others resembled walking plants or living crystals. All of them bowed down to the three ruling powers that controlled their access to the greater galaxy. Hayes pointed at her screen where strange energy patterns danced across the display. The Nexus was generating massive amounts of power, but it was being used very inefficiently. The alien builders had created a brute force solution to interdimensional travel. They had never learned the elegant methods that human scientists had discovered. Carter stopped pacing and crossed his muscular arms over his chest. He looked at the alien fleet surrounding the Nexus and counted their weapons and shields. The aliens had superior numbers and firepower, but they were using old tactics and predictable formations. A clever enemy could find ways to exploit their weaknesses. Morrison smiled as he watched the ceremony reach its climax. The alien leaders were signing their pact with great fanfare, completely unaware that everything was about to change. They thought they had secured their power for another millennium, but they were wrong. Humanity had been watching and learning. And preparing for this moment, the captain turned to his crew and spoke in a quiet voice that carried the weight of destiny. His words would soon echo across the galaxy and shake the foundations of the established order. The aliens thought they controlled the Nexus and all the pathways between worlds, but they had never encountered a species like humanity before. In a few hours, the balance of power in the galaxy would shift forever, and the three great powers would learn that their age of dominance was coming to an end. 3 days after the signing ceremony, the human ship Horizon appeared out of nowhere. Directly in front of the Nexus, the vessel materialized from hyperspace like a ghost becoming solid, and its arrival sent shockwaves through every alien crew in the area. No unauthorized ship had ever dared to approach the sacred station without permission from the Galactic Council. Captain Jake Morrison activated his communication systems and began broadcasting on every frequency known to galactic civilization. His message went out in 17 different languages, including the ancient trade tongue that all spacefaring species understood. The words were simple and direct, but they carried implications that would terrify the alien leadership. Morrison spoke calmly into his microphone while his crew watched the alien reaction on their screens. Zephyrian patrol ships were already moving to intercept them, and the Nexus defense systems were powering up their weapons. Energy readings spiked across the electromagnetic spectrum as quantum cannons swiveled to target the small human vessel. The captain leaned back in his chair and smiled at the chaos he had created with just a few words. He had requested docking privileges and an immediate audience with station command. Such arrogance from an unknown species was unprecedented in galactic history. The aliens were probably having panic attacks in a dozen different languages. Admiral Kethver appeared on the main screen of the Horizon within minutes of their arrival. His 4 eyes blazed with indignation and his mandibles clicked in a display of rage that needed no translation. Behind him, other Zephyrian officers were running back and forth, trying to analyze the human ship and determine how it had bypassed their sensor networks. The Admiral's voice crackled with fury as he delivered his ultimatum. He told Morrison that the human ship had violated sacred space and must withdraw immediately or face complete obliteration. His tone suggested that he had never before been forced to repeat such a warning to any species foolish enough to challenge Council authority. Morrison responded with casual confidence that only increased the alien commander's confusion and anger. He suggested that they could work out their differences like civilized beings and explained that humans were explorers rather than conquerors. His relaxed manner in the face of overwhelming firepower was something the aliens had never encountered. Before Lisa Hayes stepped forward to join the conversation, and her words caused even more consternation among the alien crew. She calmly informed Admiral Kethver that humanity had been monitoring Galactic Council communications for some time. She claimed that humans understood exactly what the Nexus was and how it operated. Most shocking of all, she proposed a partnership between humanity and the Council. The alien commander's expression shifted from anger to bewilderment as he tried to process what he was hearing. No primitive species had ever claimed to understand Nexus technology without centuries of supervised study under Council guidance. The quantum dimensional mechanics involved were among the most complex scientific principles in known space. Kethver's response revealed his deep skepticism about human capabilities. He declared that humanity's primitive civilization could not possibly comprehend the advanced sciences required for interdimensional travel. His words carried the arrogance of a species that had considered itself superior to all others for thousands of years. Commander Nick Carter could not suppress a grin as he listened to the aliens' dismissive comments. He politely suggested that the Admiral might want to conduct a more thorough scan of the human vessel before making assumptions about their technological level. His tone was respectful but carried an undertone of challenge that made several human crew members smile. The Zephyrian's confidence began to waver as his sensor operators reported impossible readings from the human ship. Their initial scans had revealed something that contradicted everything the aliens thought they knew about faster-than-light travel. The Horizon was not using any recognized form of hyperspace propulsion or interdimensional manipulation. Instead, the human vessel appeared to be generating its own localized space-time distortions around its hull. The ship was essentially creating miniature wormholes at will and using them to move through dimensions without requiring the massive infrastructure of the Nexus. Such technology should have been impossible according to every scientific principle. The aliens understood. Kethver ordered his science officers to run detailed scans on the human ship while he tried to maintain his authoritative demeanor. Deep inside his mind, alarm bells were ringing as he realized that humanity might represent a threat to everything his civilization had built over the past 10 millennia. Morrison watched the alien commander's growing uncertainty with satisfaction. The first phase of the human plan was working perfectly. They had demonstrated their ability to bypass the Nexus security systems and revealed technology that challenged the aliens' fundamental assumptions about physics and engineering. Hayes monitored the alien scanning attempts and smiled as she saw their confusion growing. The Zephyrian sensors were trying to analyze human dimensional drives using their own theoretical framework. It was like trying to understand a quantum computer using steam engine principles. Carter kept one eye on the tactical displays. As more alien ships moved to surround the Horizon, the odds were heavily stacked against the single human vessel, but he was not worried. The aliens had no idea what they were really dealing with, and their conventional tactics would be useless against human technology. The standoff continued for several tense minutes while both sides tried to evaluate their opponents. The aliens were struggling to understand how a previously unknown species had developed technology that surpassed their own achievements. The humans were calculating the best way to reveal their full capabilities without triggering a panic that could lead to unnecessary bloodshed. Morrison finally broke the silence by making an offer that would change everything. He suggested that the aliens might be interested in seeing a demonstration of human capabilities before they made any hasty decisions about destroying his ship. His words carried the confidence of someone who held all the cards in a high-stakes game. Within 6 hours of the first contact, the space around the Nexus had transformed into something that defied every tactical manual in the Galactic Council archives. 12 human vessels had materialized from apparently empty space, forming a perfect formation around the massive alien station. Each ship appeared without warning on the alien sensors as if they had simply decided to exist in that moment. Captain Amy Rodriguez commanded the destroyer Phoenix, which had taken point position alongside Morrison's flagship. Her ship bristled with weapons that the aliens could not identify and generated energy signatures that made no sense, according to their understanding of physics. Behind her, the massive carrier Enterprise held a defensive position with its fighter bays clearly visible and ready to launch squadrons of unknown design. Admiral Kethver stood in his command center surrounded by displays showing impossible tactical readings. His best sensor operators were reporting that the human ships were using technology that operated on principles completely outside their scientific knowledge. The vessels seemed to be manipulating space-time itself rather than simply traveling through it. The alien commander called an emergency session of the Galactic Council that brought representatives from hundreds of worlds to the Great Chamber of the Nexus. The assembled delegates demanded immediate answers about these newcomers who had somehow bypassed every security measure that protected the most important installation in galactic civilization. Chief Scientist Veltar of the Corothian Collective delivered a report that sent waves of fear through the gathered aliens. His preliminary analysis suggested that human technology operated on fundamentally different principles from anything in their databases. The humans claimed they could traverse dimensions without using the gateway systems that had been the foundation of galactic civilization for millennia. Commander Paul Stevens served as humanity's diplomatic attaché, and he stood before the assembled aliens with a calm confidence that unnerved many of the delegates. His presence in their sacred chamber was itself a violation of protocols that had been established thousands of years before his species had even discovered fire. Behind Stevens, Dr. Lisa Hayes prepared equipment for a demonstration that would shatter every assumption the aliens had made about the nature of dimensional travel. Her instruments were compact and elegant compared to the massive machinery that powered the Nexus, but they were about to reveal capabilities that would make the alien technology look primitive. Stevens began his presentation by acknowledging that humanity had been observing Galactic Council operations for the past 50 years. He explained that human scientists had studied alien methods and technology with great interest, but had also identified significant limitations in their approach to dimensional manipulation. The chamber erupted in protests and demands for immediate military action against the presumptuous humans who dared to criticize the greatest technological achievement in galactic history. Representatives from dozens of species called for the destruction of the human fleet before they could spread their heretical ideas to other worlds. Stevens waited patiently for the noise to subside before continuing his presentation. His calm demeanor in the face of such hostility impressed even those aliens who wanted him dead. When silence finally returned, he introduced Dr. Hayes and explained that she would demonstrate why humanity believed the Nexus represented only the beginning of what was possible. Hayes activated her equipment, and the entire chamber was suddenly filled with a three-dimensional holographic map that showed the local region of space in incredible detail. The assembled aliens fell silent as they realized they were looking at something that had never been seen before in the history of galactic civilization. The map displayed thousands of dimensional pathways threading through the space around the Nexus like glowing rivers of light. Most of the routes were completely unknown to the alien scientists who had spent centuries mapping what they thought was the complete network of interdimensional passages in their region of the galaxy. The revelation struck the assembled delegates like a physical blow as they realized the implications of what they were seeing. The Nexus sat at the intersection of exactly 7 major dimensional pathways, which had been the source of the 3 ruling species' power and wealth for 10,000 years. The human map showed 43 separate routes that could be used for interdimensional travel. Hayes spoke with the quiet confidence of someone who had spent years studying the fundamental nature of reality itself. She explained that the alien approach to dimensional travel was like trying to navigate an ocean by only using 7 ports while ignoring the hundreds of other harbors that could provide safe passage for travelers. The political implications of the demonstration were staggering, and several alien representatives began whispering urgent communications to their home governments. If humans could access dimensional routes that bypass the Nexus entirely, then the carefully maintained power structure of galactic civilization would collapse overnight. Veltar demanded to know how humanity had discovered pathways that had remained hidden from the most advanced sensor systems in the galaxy. His question carried a desperate hope that the human claims were somehow false or exaggerated beyond the bounds of reality. Hayes explained that human dimensional technology was based on different theoretical principles than those used by the Galactic Council. Instead of trying to force open passages through brute application of power, humans had learned to detect and utilize natural fluctuations in the fabric of space-time itself. Admiral Kethver found his voice long enough to ask the question that was terrifying every delegate in the chamber. If humans could travel through dimensions without using the Nexus, then what purpose did the Great Station serve in the new reality that was emerging around them? Morrison's voice came over the communication system from his ship as he provided an answer that would reshape the future of galactic civilization. He explained that humanity was not interested in destroying the existing order, but rather in expanding it beyond anything that had been previously imagined. The captain proposed that instead of controlling a handful of choke points, the Galactic Council could manage an entire network of free-flowing interdimensional traffic. The Nexus would remain important as a hub and coordination center, but it would no longer be the sole gateway between worlds. Stevens concluded the presentation by formally proposing a partnership between humanity and the Galactic Council. He offered to share human dimensional navigation technology in exchange for full membership and equal representation in the galactic government. His words carried the weight of an offer that could transform civilization itself. The revelation about the hidden dimensional pathways sent shockwaves through the highest levels of galactic government that continued for days after the human demonstration. Emergency sessions of the Galactic Council convened around the clock, as alien scientists desperately worked to verify the impossible claims made by these newcomers who had appeared from nowhere. Admiral Kethver found himself in the unusual position of defending the competence of his own science teams to increasingly panicked government officials. His command center had become a constant stream of urgent communications from the homeworlds of all three ruling species. Everyone wanted to know how humanity had discovered secrets that had been hidden for thousands of years. The Zephyrian admiral paced through his ship's corridors while studying reports from his best scientists and engineers. Every analysis confirmed that the human readings were accurate and that dozens of previously unknown dimensional passages existed within territory that his people had controlled for millennia. The implications were staggering and terrifying in equal measure. Commander Terranex approached his superior with the latest batch of verification reports, and his expression revealed the depth of their crisis. His voice carried a tremor of fear as he delivered news that would shake the foundations of their civilization. If the human calculations were correct, then the three ruling species had been controlling less than 20% of the actual interdimensional network. The political implications hit Admiral Kethver like a physical blow as he realized what this meant for everything his people had built over 10,000 years of expansion and conquest. The Galactic Council's power derived entirely from their monopoly over interdimensional travel. Without that advantage, they were just another group of species among hundreds of others. Meanwhile, Captain Jake Morrison found himself in the unprecedented position of leading humanity's first formal diplomatic mission to a galactic government that had never imagined his species existed. The responsibility weighed heavily on his shoulders as he realized that his decisions could determine whether humanity joined galactic civilization as partners or enemies. Morrison met with his senior staff in the secure conference room aboard the Horizon to discuss their strategy for the negotiations ahead. The aliens were clearly terrified by the implications of human technology, but terror could lead to either surrender or desperate violence. The humans needed to carefully manage the situation to avoid triggering a war they did not want. Dr. Lisa Hayes had been monitoring alien communications traffic, and her analysis revealed the deep divisions that were forming within the Galactic Council. Some species were demanding immediate military action against the human fleet, while others were already trying to figure out how to make separate deals with humanity for access to the new dimensional pathways. Commander Nick Carter studied tactical reports from their scout ships and reported that alien military forces were mobilizing throughout the local sector. Battle fleets from all three ruling species were moving toward the Nexus, while defense installations prepared for possible conflict. The situation was balanced on a knife edge between diplomacy and warfare. Captain Amy Rodriguez joined the strategy session via secure communication link from her destroyer Phoenix. Her ship was monitoring alien fleet movements, and she reported growing tensions between the different species as they competed for position around the Nexus. The unity of the Galactic Council was beginning to fracture under pressure. Morrison realized that humanity needed to demonstrate their peaceful intentions while also showing that they could not be easily defeated if forced into conflict. The balance between appearing strong and non-threatening required careful calculation and perfect timing. One wrong move could trigger a galactic war. Hayes proposed that they invite selected alien representatives on a practical demonstration of human dimensional navigation capabilities. Such a field trip would prove their claims beyond doubt while also showing that humans were willing to share their knowledge with cooperative partners. The psychological impact could be decisive in winning over moderate factions. Carter expressed concerns about revealing too much about human technology to potential enemies, but Morrison recognized the strategic value of the proposal, showing aliens what human ships could do in practice rather than just theory would be far more convincing than any amount of technical data or holographic displays. the captain decided to identify a dimensional passage that led to an uninhabited system far from any major alien installations. Such a demonstration would prove human capabilities without threatening any established territories or trade routes. The location needed to be impressive, but not strategically valuable to avoid complications. Rodriguez suggested using one of the newly discovered pathways that connected to a system the aliens had marked as inaccessible in their star charts. The dramatic reduction in travel time would demonstrate the practical benefits of human technology while avoiding any appearance of territorial expansion or resource. Grabbing Hayes began calculating the precise coordinates for a dimensional fold. That would take them to a system approximately 30 light-years away from the Nexus, according to alien navigation charts. Such a journey would require months of travel through conventional hyperspace lanes human dimensional drives could make. A trip in minutes, Morrison approved the plan and began preparing formal invitations to send to the Galactic Council leadership. The message would be carefully worded to emphasize cooperation and mutual benefit, while subtly reminding the aliens that humanity held significant advantages in any potential conflict. The captain understood that this demonstration would be humanity's best chance to prove their value as allies rather than threats. Success could lead to a peaceful integration into galactic civilization with humans as equal partners. Failure might trigger the very war they were trying to avoid. Carter began selecting escort vessels for the joint expedition, while Hayes prepared the technical equipment needed to monitor alien reactions during the demonstration. Every detail needed to be perfect because they would not get a second chance to make this critical first impression on galactic civilization. Admiral Kethver received the human invitation within hours and found himself facing the most important decision of his long military career. Accepting would mean acknowledging that humans possessed superior technology and deserved to be treated as equals. Refusing might mean missing the chance to learn secrets that could preserve his civilization's future. The alien commander looked out at the human fleet surrounding his station and realized that everything was about to change whether he liked it or not. The joint expedition launched exactly 1 week after the human invitation was delivered to the Galactic Council leadership. 3 human vessels accompanied 5 ships from the alien government in what would become the most important voyage in galactic history. Admiral Keffer himself commanded the Zephyrin flagship, determined to witness human capabilities with his own eyes rather than rely on secondhand reports. Captain Jake Morrison piloted the Horizon toward coordinates that appeared completely empty to every alien sensor system aboard the Council ships. The dimensional fold he intended to use existed in a region of space that registered as nothing more than background radiation and quantum fluctuations on their most sensitive instruments. The alien crews watched in fascination and growing unease as the human ship approached what seemed to be absolutely nothing. Their scientists had detected no unusual gravitational anomalies or electromagnetic disturbances that would indicate the presence of any kind of dimensional gateway or space-time distortion in the target area. Morrison activated his dimensional drive, and the Horizon simply vanished from the alien sensors as if it had never existed at all. One moment, the human ship was clearly visible on their displays, and the next moment, it was completely gone without leaving any trace of its passage. Through normal space, the alien crews began emergency scanning procedures, trying desperately to locate any sign of where the human vessel had gone. Their most advanced sensor arrays detected nothing unusual in the area where the Horizon had disappeared. The ship seemed to have been erased from reality itself. Admiral Kethver ordered his science teams to expand their search parameters while privately wondering if he had just witnessed the destruction of the human flagship by some unknown dimensional hazard. The possibility that Morrison had made a fatal error in his calculations was both disturbing and oddly reassuring to the alien commander. 30 seconds later, the Horizon emerged from another, apparently empty region of space that was located behind the alien formation. Morrison's voice crackled over the communication system with casual confidence as he greeted the startled Council fleet. His tone suggested that teleporting across space was the most natural thing in the galaxy. The human captain provided coordinates for their destination and suggested that the alien ships proceed to those numbers using their conventional propulsion systems. He explained that the horizon would meet them there after the longer journey required by their traditional technology. His words carried no hint of arrogance, but the implications were clear. The alien fleet engaged their hyperspace drives and began the journey to the designated coordinates while their crews tried to process what they had just witnessed. The human ship had traveled an unknown distance through some kind of dimensional shortcut that their science could not detect or understand. The voyage took the alien ships nearly 4 hours using their most efficient hyperspace routes. When they finally arrived at the destination, they found the horizon waiting in orbit around a planet that should have been impossible to reach from their starting point. The system was one that their star charts had marked as completely inaccessible. Morrison welcomed the alien fleet to Kepler 442b unprovided. Statistics that stunned every officer in the Council formation. According to their own navigation computers, the journey from the Nexus to this system should have required 97 days of travel through conventional hyperspace lanes. The human dimensional fold had reduced that time to exactly 4 minutes. Admiral Kethver stared at his tactical displays in complete disbelief as his navigation officers confirmed the impossible travel time. This star system had been surveyed by Zephyrian exploration fleets decades earlier, but they had concluded that it was too remote to be worth establishing any kind of permanent presence. Dr. Lisa Hayes took over the presentation from her position on the Horizon's bridge and began explaining the broader implications of what the aliens had just experienced. The demonstration was not simply about reaching one remote system, but about fundamentally changing how galactic civilization could expand and develop. Hayes pointed out that their current location had been marked as economically worthless in all Galactic Council databases because the transportation costs made trade impossible. With human dimensional navigation technology, every major system in the galaxy could be connected by journeys measured in minutes rather than months. Commander Nick Carter highlighted the strategic advantages of the new transportation network for both civilian and military applications. Scientific exploration missions could reach previously inaccessible regions of space, while defense forces could respond to threats anywhere in the galaxy within hours, instead of weeks. The implications were staggering for every aspect of galactic civilization, from economics to politics to military strategy. Trade routes that had been economically impossible would become profitable overnight. Scientific research could expand into regions of space that had been beyond reach. Military conflicts could be resolved quickly before they escalated into major wars. Captain Amy Rodriguez added her voice to the discussion from the Phoenix and emphasized that this was just the beginning of what became possible when the complete dimensional pathway network was properly mapped and utilized. The 43 routes they had identified around the Nexus were only a small sample of what existed throughout the galaxy. Admiral Kethver found his voice long enough to ask the question that had been haunting him since the demonstration began. If humans could offer transportation technology that made existing systems obsolete, then what would happen to the established power structure that had governed galactic civilization for thousands of years? Morrison answered with the diplomatic skill that had made him humanity's chosen representative to the galactic government. He explained that the goal was not to destroy the existing order, but to expand it beyond anything that had been previously imagined by any species in the known galaxy. The captain emphasized that institutions like the Galactic Council would become more important rather than less important as the dimensional network expanded. Instead of controlling a few choke points, they would be coordinating traffic flow across hundreds of interconnected pathways that span the entire galaxy. Hayes added technical details about how the expanded network would require sophisticated management systems to prevent accidents and maintain efficient traffic patterns. The skills and experience that the Council had developed over millennia would be essential for managing the vastly more complex transportation grid. Carter pointed out that the security challenges would also increase dramatically as the number of accessible routes multiplied. Military forces would need to adapt their strategies and tactics to deal with threats that could appear anywhere in the galaxy with very little warning time. The alien representatives listened in stunned silence as they realized that humanity was offering them a chance to participate in something far greater than anything their civilizations had ever achieved. The choice was between clinging to their diminishing control over obsolete technology or embracing a future that offered unlimited possibilities. Morrison concluded the demonstration by formally renewing humanity's offer of partnership and technological sharing. His words carried the weight of an offer that would transform not just the balance of power in the galaxy, but the very nature of what galactic civilization could become. Admiral Kethver looked around at the impossible star system where his ships now floated and realized that he was witnessing the dawn of a new age in galactic history. The formal negotiations began in the neutral territory of the Kepler 442 system, where humanity had established a temporary diplomatic station in orbit around the planet that alien charts had declared unreachable. Representatives from dozens of species participated through quantum communication links, while the most important delegates chose to attend the historic meetings in person. Captain Jake Morrison found himself serving as humanity's chief negotiator in a role he had never expected. When he first joined the Deep Space Exploration Service, across the conference table sat Admiral Kethver, along with senior representatives from the Corothian Collective and the Vex Syndicate, who would determine the future relationship between humanity and galactic civilization. The temporary station that human engineers had constructed in just a few days was a marvel of efficiency and advanced technology that impressed even the most skeptical alien observers. The modular design allowed for rapid expansion to accommodate additional delegations, while sophisticated life support systems maintained comfortable environments for dozens of different species. Morrison began the negotiations by addressing the fundamental question that had been troubling alien leaders since humanity's first appearance at the Nexus. He explained that the choice before them was simple but profound in its implications for the future of galactic civilization. They could work together to expand beyond anything previously imagined or waste precious time fighting over control of obsolete systems. Dr. Lisa Hayes presented the technical framework for sharing human dimensional navigation technology with member species of the Galactic Council. Her proposal outlined a gradual process of technology transfer that would allow alien civilizations to adapt their existing infrastructure while gaining access to the vastly expanded transportation network. The human approach was fundamentally different from the massive installations like the Nexus that required enormous resources and decades of construction time. Individual ships could be equipped with dimensional drives that made every vessel capable of interdimensional travel without requiring any fixed infrastructure or support facilities. The alien delegates exchanged worried glances as they realized the implications of what Hayes was describing. Commander Terranex voiced the concern that was troubling many of the representatives when he asked what purpose the Galactic Council would serve if every species could travel independently through the dimensional network. Captain Amy Rodriguez leaned forward to address those fears with the diplomatic skills that had made her an ideal choice for the human negotiating team. She explained that the Council would serve the same essential purposes that any effective government provided to its citizens, including coordination and regulation and mutual defense against external threats. The fundamental difference would be in the scope and complexity of their responsibilities rather than in their basic governmental functions. Instead of controlling traffic through a handful of critical choke points, they would be managing an entire network of freely flowing transportation routes that connected every corner of the galaxy. Commander Paul Stevens added that humanity was proposing a true partnership based on equality and mutual benefit rather than the traditional model of dominant species controlling subordinate ones. The expanded dimensional network would require cooperation between all member civilizations to function effectively and safely. Stevens outlined the formal proposal that would govern the new relationship between humanity and the Galactic Council. Humans would share their dimensional navigation technology with all member species in exchange for full membership status and equal representation in the governmental structure that managed galactic affairs, Admiral Kethver remained silent for a long time as he studied the human proposals and considered their implications for his own civilization and the broader galactic community. Finally, he asked the question that revealed his deepest concerns about humanity's true motivations in making such generous offers. The alien commander pointed out that humans could have simply used their superior technology to bypass Council authority entirely and establish their own independent transportation network. He wanted to understand why they were offering partnership instead of simply taking what they wanted through superior technological capability. Morrison smiled as he recognized the fear and suspicion that had driven the Admiral's question. He explained that humanity had studied galactic history extensively and learned from the mistakes that other species had made when they tried to dominate their neighbors through technological or military superiority. The captain pointed out that every previous attempt at galactic conquest had ultimately failed because it was impossible for any single species to control the vast diversity of worlds and civilizations that made up the galactic community. Cooperation and partnership were not just morally superior approaches, but also practically more effective in the long term. Hayes added that human scientists and philosophers had concluded that the greatest achievements in galactic history had resulted from collaboration between different species with complementary strengths and capabilities. The expanded dimensional network would require the combined knowledge and resources of many civilizations to reach its full potential. Carter emphasized the security benefits of a cooperative approach to managing the expanded transportation network. The increased accessibility provided by human technology would also create new threats that could only be addressed through coordinated defensive strategies involving all member species of the Council. 6 months after the initial negotiations concluded, the first joint Human Council expedition departed from the expanded Nexus station on a journey that would have been impossible under the old technological limitations. The destination was the Andromeda Galaxy, accessible through a newly discovered interdimensional passage that conventional ships would have needed millions of years to traverse. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned vessel, Discovery, and watched as the combined fleet of human and alien ships prepared to make the historic jump between galaxies. Beside him, Admiral Kethver served as Joint Mission Commander in a partnership that would have been unthinkable just months earlier. The Zephyrian officer had adapted to working with humans more quickly than anyone had expected, and his military expertise combined with human technological innovation had produced remarkable results. The two commanders had developed a mutual respect that served as a model for the broader cooperation between their civilizations. Morrison asked his alien partner if he was ready to make history, and the Admiral's response revealed how much had changed since their first confrontational meeting. K.